So in the last video, we covered the first two concepts of cash discounting, which is the price increase and the cash discount. And we talked about the different ways that can be implemented. In this video, which is going to be a little shorter, we're going to talk about what happens kind of behind the scenes. So on the front end, we got to increase the price. We got to do a cash discount. So we're creating this situation where there are two different prices. One price you pay with a credit card, one price that you pay with cash. Now, the next step happens behind the scenes, which is what we call revenue collection, okay? Revenue collection. So what's happened is the merchant is now collecting extra revenue, right? So before they were charging $100 for this item, but now because somebody uses their credit card, that price has been raised and it's actually $104. So there's an extra $4 of revenue that was created. Now, if somebody pays in cash, then they pay $100. There's no extra revenue, right? But there's this extra revenue that's created, a tiny bit of extra revenue, every time somebody uses a form of payment that's not cash. They're going to pay a little bit more. Well, when that happens, somebody has to collect that revenue so that we can offset the fees, okay? So the next big question to always ask when you're looking at a cash discount program on a particular device is, how are we collecting the revenue that the merchant has collected from the consumer? So again, a merchant that does $10,000 in credit card volume today that implements a cash discount program at 4%, they are the next month going to collect $10,400 in revenue, because on those same sales that would have brought in $10,000, they're now raising the price up 4%, let's say. So now instead of collecting $10,000, they're going to collect $10,400 in revenue. That's their sales revenue, but somehow we got to collect that $400 so that we can hang on to it, so we can eliminate the fees in that last step, okay? Now that's done several different ways. Most commonly, it's done through a daily discount. So the way a daily discount works is that every day, the processing company is actually going to pull a certain percentage of that revenue from the merchant before they deposit it into the bank account, okay? So let's use an example where they used to process $1,000 in payment processing volume or revenue. Well, they implement a cash discount program, so at 4%, and so now that volume on a given day is $1,040. So the payment processing company would implement a daily discount to pull that $40 before they make the deposit. So the merchant's going to get $1,000 deposited to their bank account, not $1,040. Okay, so that revenue gets collected. So then that revenue we've got that revenue so that we can then offset the expense of the credit card processing. Now, here's the thing. That's not the only way you can do it. And different technology solutions are going to handle it in different ways. Some technology solutions are smarter, and they may have something in place where they can do some kind of an escrow account or something to where, it's much, maybe a simplified billing process or something like that. But really, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the idea is we're collecting the revenue, okay? You'll even see some solutions where they're willing to do the cash discount program where they increase the revenue, but they are not going to collect that extra revenue. They're going to let the merchant hang on to it for the rest of the month. And then at the end of the month, they're still going to charge the merchant the processing fees, but those processing fees have been offset by the extra revenue collected. So it's very important as you're talking to merchants about this that they understand that in reality, it's not so much that you're completely eliminating these fees, this expense, you are, but it's not that you're just doing that. The way you're doing it is there still is a cost to process payments. It's not like you are actually have the system to where it doesn't cost anything to process payments. That's not what's happening. What's happening is you're collecting additional revenue, right? So we're collecting more money on the transaction, and we're then taking that money and going to the final step, step number 4, which is to eliminate the fees. So we're helping the merchant collect extra revenue, and then that extra revenue is used to offset the processing fees. Now, what you're going to find is, as a general rule, merchants are happier, business owners are happier when you're collecting that money daily throughout the month, so that at the end of the month, you send them a statement and say, hey, guess what? You don't owe us anything. We were able to wipe out all these fees for you. And so they're generally happier with that. Some larger merchants don't care as much. They get it. They understand that, hey, I did get extra revenue, and that revenue has offset the credit card processing expenses, right? So Again, it doesn't really matter in the final analysis when we look at it financially. We're collecting extra revenue, we are offsetting the fees. But again, what we found is small business owners generally like the visual aid of getting a statement at the end of the month that shows, hey, throughout the month we collected $400. The processing fees are $400, and so you owe us zero. And that's really an ideal situation for a merchant. Of course, it doesn't always work out exactly like that, but that's the idea, that we're collecting extra revenue and we're using it to offset the fees. But it is important that you understand that those two concepts are fundamentally separated. Even though there's technology now and we have all this great technology that's able to make sure these numbers offset each other, but really it is two different things that's happening. One thing that's happening is we're collecting some extra revenue from the merchant that they collected from the consumer. And the other thing that's happening is they're still getting charged credit card processing fees. We're just using that extra revenue to offset the cost of those credit card processing fees.